So, well, why are you here? What we can learn about the desert, no? Because it's a problematic space, because the desert is something that belongs to the imaginary of each of us, mostly due to movies, maybe literature, and everybody, including me, the first time I came to the desert, we were expecting for dunes and for isolated oases like this one in Mauritania. And that's maybe the idea of what an oasis is, which means a small place in the middle of the dunes where you arrive and you think and feel that you are safe because you have water, and that you can consider that as a small island in the middle of nowhere. And of course there are oases like that, but when you are talking about the north shore and the south shore of the Sahara Desert, we cannot talk about just one oasis, but a set of oases. And to understand how they are located and how they are related each in the same area, you have to understand the geology and the topography. In Morocco, there are three main spaces with oases. This one is Gelmim in the Atlantic coast, and you can see all the small oases you can find there. They are around this area because there are three small mountains. These ones are bigger, and there is the wet Nun who is coming there. Okay, so the organization of these areas, it depends first of all on tribes, but then also because we are talking about rather than oasis, one set of the oasis that could be considered as a logistic hub, where there are first of all the tribes, but then there are also the guilds specialized in one kind of trade or in one kind of craft or in one matter related to the caravan routes. Then if you go to where we are, the Dra Valley, because of the river Dra that we just saw today, it's the longest river in Morocco, more than 1,000 kilometers. We are just here. Okay, we are there. So it's as I said this morning, it's 200 kilometers to El Hamid. In fact, it is not just one oasis. We're talking about 6. We are in Mesgita, then Tinzolin, Ternata, Fezwata, Ketawa, and Hamid al-Ghizlan. The other big one is Rashidia, but if we still stay in the Dra Valley, you can see the extensions of the oasis, and those dots are the villages. We are going to talk later about that. Also, it's very, very, very important to take into account the topography and geology, because sometimes we just have a palm grove of just 1 kilometer wide. And again, you can see the situation of the traditional villages, which are the Oxor and the Kasbah, and also the new extensions that are appearing right now. So except 1 or 2 of them, the other are on the edge of the palm grove, but because there is no more space for them. If we go to one of the last palm groves, which is Ketawa, we find almost 8 kilometers wide, and there is 70 Oxur inside, 70. So 70 villages inside the palm grove. And the new city of Tagounit, made by the French during the Protectorate. But also it's very interesting how people live and how they are organized, because there is a river, there are spaces where there are floods, but also you have to know that the difference between living on the edge or outside the palm grove or inside could be 6 centigrades. 6, and that had been measured by a friend of mine from Zagora that had a house on rammed earth inside the palm grove and another on the edge. So he measured with the same thermometer that temperature. So it's also a place where you can support the 45, 46 degrees they used to have. So these are the three main areas: the Nun River, the Dra River, and the Beres River. And they are, the three of them, what we call here in Morocco the pre-Saharan regions. From there to the south, there is nothing. Now you can find some villages, some water wells, some small oases, but the next set of the oases is located in the Adrar region in Mauritania. It's 1,000 kilometers far from there. Okay? So that's why people arriving from all over Morocco and Algeria arrive to one of these 3 points and wait to the caravan to be formed, and so they live together till Mauritania. Or the opposite, the people coming from Mali, Mauritania, Senegal arrive to that area. They consider that they cross the desert and they are safe. And overall, it's because there are almost always water. And I will tell you about the importance of water. So this is the connection between these areas and Morocco. But in fact, that belongs to a huge network, a continental network, connecting the Maghreb with the Sahel through the desert, which is when sometimes you can think that the desert is a natural border. It is not true. Okay? But they are connecting then this area to the Middle East and to Europe. And the trade that has been developed, at least in this area in Morocco, according to archaeologists' studies, at least from the 9th century, but according to other studies between Libya and Niger, it has been from the 2nd or the 3rd century with the Romans. So you can have an idea where we are on those networks. So, and because of that, it was very important the Mediterranean ports, because then you have to, all the merchandise had to go to Europe. So, but the question is that if there were a war in the Mediterranean Sea, it was too risky to use the ports, so people started to go to Agadir. And from Agadir, the trade went to Portugal, to Spain, to Ireland, to France. So it's like, and if there is a tribe here that they are in war with another tribe, and so they cut this route, so the route go to another place. So it's also a question to be considered. So the oasis, if you want to understand the oasis, the first matter you have to understand is water, where water comes and how the water is used, knowing that we are talking about an agriculture area made by men. It is not a natural environment. All those things have been created by men, where you have 3 main elements. You have the palm trees, you have the fruit trees, and then you have the cereals. And you need the 3 of them, because they provide shade, they provide protection against the sand and the dust coming from the south. And also the cereals, sometimes as in any other agriculture area, sometimes they let the plot for 2 or 3 years without working, so they can regenerate the soil. But the question is, if people don't work in the palm grove, sand in some areas can come inside, so you're not going to have cereals anymore. Then the fruit trees are going to fall down, and maybe the palm trees are going to remain longer. However, even if we associate the image of a palm tree with an oasis, sometimes this is not the main tree. It could be the acacia, it could be the poplar, it could be the olive trees, big olive trees. So that changed a lot, but not the system, a big tree, medium tree, and the cereal. So sometimes when people talk about desertification, it is not just about water. Sometimes it's a social issue because they move to the cities, to Marrakech, to Ouarzazate, to Casablanca, or to Europe, and so they don't take care about the sun coming inside or the plot, and there are a lot of areas there. So the main sources of water, we have rain, okay? But we have the river. Right? That's why the valleys are called, are associated to the river, the Dra, the seas, and the wet noon. And from the river, you have seen today, this morning, some canals. If not, you have also a natural spring, like this one in Tirmat, in Gelmim, which is very important because for nomads, when you are sure that there is always water in one place, you go directly to there, because sometimes you can go, and if there is no water, you have to walk for 2 or 3 days, and the journey is longer. And you see the canal, because then you arrive to the mangrove and you have to distribute the water. Because you have to be sure that the water comes to all the plot of the area. And imagine that sometimes we are talking about 20, 30 kilometers, and you have to be sure that everybody has the water. And also one interesting thing is that when you plan an oasis, the first thing is the water, and then the public spaces, the small streets or the small alleys. It is not like today when we do urban planning, we make the streets and then the civil engineer is going to see how it's going to solve all the mess you are drawing. No, that is the opposite. No, it's water who is making the public spaces, and then you make the irrigation. Now they are introducing the drop-by-drop system, and now because there is not water at all, they are trying to optimize the water. In some places, on Oxford, they have, this is a very strange system, a pendulum water well. You find that just in the last 2 palm groves in Ketawa and M. Hamid. And there was a guy who was paid for a bag of water. He was paid 1 dirham. And once I met it is not working anymore, but now with the pump, the electric pump, the gas pump, he has no more work. But I have an interview with the guy who was earning his life just with the water. So then there is another way to get water from the mountains. And to get water from the mountain and to bring that to the oasis. This is, maybe, I don't know if you are going to go there in your way to Merzouga. This is the oasis of Jorf. I don't know if you just see these lines over there. If we get closer, like a dot, no? It's like something made by the ants, but there are ventilation well. And in fact, we are talking about underground canals. You bring the water from places where it's underground and you arrive to where you want. A lot of them are abandoned, but also it's a way of keeping the community together because they are organized in places that it is still working. They organize because, okay, this year it's your tribe who is going to clean the underground water. And if the level of the water where you get that is lower, okay, so you have to dig. And sometimes you can have 15 meters deep in one of the near Tingir, one of the most spectacular. You can see how important could be also for a city. This is Marrakech. All this red dot, this is the Khetara that were in Marrakech before the Protectorate. And this is a plan. I can give you the link of the publication in the 70s for a German research, and he was comparing the Khetara from Marrakech, Madrid, and Tehran. It is said that the Khetara, in Tehran they are called Qanat, and the one who developed this system. But also, just to clarify, when you are hearing about the bath, the hammam, all the water system developed by the Arab dynasty, they come from the Romans. They just made some changes, but all the technology come, and still today it is said that we just improve the material, but the hydraulic concept come from the Romans. Okay, so the question, yeah.
Oh yeah. When they were making the canals, what kind of like equipment did they use to like make them? If they had like, what kind, like to dig out the tunnels, or were they like tunnels already in the mountains?
No, they have to. First of all, they have to find the phreatic water.
Yeah.
And then you can create you can dig to make some well. But when the well is 20 kilometers far, so how are you going to bring that? The Romans, they use the aqueduct. But if the problem also with the water here, it's really hot, so it's going to be evaporated. So also it's a way to protect the water from the sun or from the other thing, and then to keep it not too hot. So you're not going to lose that.
What is the distance between the vent holes for like scale-wise? Like
between the dots?
Yeah.
Could be 3, 4, 5 meters. It depends again on the geology.
Like the surrounding rock.
And the kind of soil that is going to, and it is just for ventilation. It is not because people are saying, no, the pressure of the no.
It's more for like human comfort. It's not for ventilation of the water.
No, it's also to get some fresh air. So it's could be a problem with for the water. Okay, so once you get this water from the river, from the Getaria through the mountains, in big cities like in Marrakech, you have to stock the water. So the two main places are the Menara Garden, and the other one is the Agdal Garden. There were around 20 water reservoirs like those in Marrakech. Some of them are already disappeared because of the new extension of the city. Some of them are being remained, but in the middle of a new neighborhood, and now they don't want what to do. But you have to know that those hydraulic works had been done in the 12th century. So 11 centuries ago, and it is still working because this one, the Agdal Garden, is a part of the King Palace complex. So they keep they stock the water. There are 2 pools, and then they have the plots where they can cultivate what the people associated to the palace going to eat. No? And so they can have enough water. I don't know for how many years, because when there are droughts in this area, it could stay for 4 or 5 years. Okay. So once you have this also big reservoir around the city, you have to make the distribution inside the city. It could be the main tool they use are the fountains that used to be associated to the mosque, not the mosque. The complex of the mosque, because the mosque, for example, in Marrakech, you have the mosque, you have the madrasa, which means the Quranic school or university. You can have a library, you can have even a marabut, you can have houses, you have the hammam, and you have the fountain. This is the fountain of Sidi Belabes as-Septi, one of the 7 saints of Marrakech, one of the most important. And I'm always very proud to show this because he is from my city, from Ceuta. And one of my first projects was the rehabilitation of the small marabut of Sidi Belabes, but in Ceuta. And I didn't know how important at that moment he was to Marrakech. And then there is also another one from the Marsin Mosque that were built, all the complex, they demolished all this complex to build the mosque during the 16th century, during the Saadian dynasty. But then you have small houses. It is called, when it is just a house with a courtyard without vegetation, it is called dar. But when it is big enough to have a garden or just some trees, it is called riad. This is a huge riad, and today you can visit the secret garden. And it is very, very interesting because it was by Italian owners. They discovered that the hydraulic system were still there, and you have just to clean that. So it's very interesting because you have a kind of a pool, and you have the water that comes from a distribution fountain. It is not the public one. And then, because thanks to gravity, water is coming up from there, and then they go through this line. So now for gravity, they have enough energy to go to the small plot or to small fountains. As you can see, also the same system, and then that goes to the small fountain. So there is no pump to make the system work. So, but we were talking about this, all this water hydraulic system. It works very well when you have a city, when you have mountains, when you have valleys. But what happened in the middle of the Sahara Desert, where there is no rivers, there is nothing. So the only thing you have is the water wells. And what is important that when you ask someone, I want to go from this city to another city 300 kilometers away, which is the way to arrive there, is going to tell you the name of the walls you have to pass through. And I know that because it happened to me. Okay, I want to go from this sheet to Wadan. What is the way? Because you can take Google Maps to draw a line. It is not. This friend, she sent me the name of 10 water walls, and it was not the straight. You have to go near mountains. So if you want to know how it works, this system, this continental network, you have to understand how it works the water, and also to be aware of the importance of such small water walls. That's not compared with the magnificence of this water reservoir in Marrakech. You know? So another important matter of the oasis, the social organization. We already mentioned the tribes, and Hassan talked about the tribes. Today, if in big cities in Morocco, people are not aware, they don't know what is a tribe. They don't even know if they are Arab or Berber. But in the south or in rural areas, it is unthinkable to a kid to do not know what tribe he belongs. It is very important because a lot of the problems that the humankind has in Middle East that come from the tribe and the misunderstanding of Occidental countries, Western countries, to understand what is a tribe and how you have to deal with that. So, for example, in Morocco you have today, it is not the Arab tribe the most important. Yeah, there are the Berber tribes that were here before the arrival of the Islam in the 7th century. But at that moment you had also the Jewish tribes. And there are still Jewish people living in Morocco, but the heritage, even in the south area, are very, very important. And it is said that they arrived here in the 5th century before Jesus Christ. And that to that network that I show, tribes from Yemen, from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, from Tunisia, from Mali, from Mauritania, arrived at a moment to Morocco. Also from Morocco, they went to Spain, to Portugal, to Mali, and to many other places. So, and that's the question of nomad tribes, which is a very, very complex subject. But we are in the Dra Valley. There were also Christian tribes.
Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe. You can talk about Pays Basque and their connection.
Each tribe, then they are organized. There is the tribe, the fraction, and the family. And of course, they can have problem between the family, between the fraction, and between the tribes. The tribes can be confederated, and sometimes that gave birth to a dynasty like the Almoravids. No? But when the tribes could be in Morocco, could move between the high Atlas Mountains, who are over there, and the river Senegal. We are talking about an area of maybe 3,000 kilometers, and they move. And sometimes also to Niger, to Nigeria, or to Sudan, or to Egypt, of course. And so nowadays, the tribes, they are dressed in a different way. So you can, if you know a little bit about tribe, you can say, that woman, she's Berber. Why? Because she's black, like this one. If they have a very color clothes, which is called melha, and that's from the Saharan area. Could be Sahrawi, or could be tribe associated more to the desert. They have the music and the dances, and that belongs to their identity. And sometimes it's the only way they have to tell the story of the tribe through history. There are a lot of researches made about analyzing the words and why we do that. They have here the Hawash, no? A Hawash. But here are around 12 in the Dra Valley: Hawash, Hahidus, Rekba, Kalal, Iska, Ganga, Gedra. I had that experience to arrive when I was working on the 300 Qsur in the area. When you arrive to a place where there is no tourist, people saw me with my Spanish car, my old Spanish car. Are you lost? Is it the Daksar, I don't know, Takatart? You are not lost. No, and you are doing Ahidus. Who the hell are you? You are not lost, you know what we are doing. That was a way to introduce myself and say, okay, I'm not a tourist. They were, of course, very, very, very happy to do that. And also, well, I organized with some friends in a small oasis in Gelmim, which was called Nulanta. We are doing the 10th edition next year of Caravan Tirmat. It's an artist gathering. We propose visual artists, writers, musicians, dancers to come, not to produce things there, but to make researches on there. But for example, the dancers, we propose that, okay, here we have the Gedra. And sometimes I love contemporary dance. And sometimes you take one part of the dance and it could be contemporary dance. So you have to know that in north of the High Atlas Mountains, Moroccan people think that there is nothing here and that it is not culture, it's folklore. And it is much deeper than they think. That's why we are trying to bring people, artists, not just from Morocco, from abroad, to work in a contemporary way with all this culture they have. And as I said, each tribe has a music and a dance associated to them. So if there are 500 tribes in Morocco, you can have an idea of how rich is the music and culture. And then there is also a very important thing that when you see all the rugs and carpets over there, and you can talk about graphic design, about all these motifs, because these motifs are not going just to be used in craft. In fact, they come from the tattoos. And another thing, very important thing I have learned in the desert, that everything is related. I have already talked about a little bit about the importance of the geology, the topography, the water, agriculture, now the social issues. Everything is connected, and you as an architect, you have to know that even it's related to architecture, because all these motifs are the same from the tattoos, are the same from the craft, and are also sometimes associated to the tribes. Because sometimes tribes, and to the henna that the women and men used to do in her hands with the henna with like a temporary tattoo, no? Because we had an artist, Hadija Labiat, who has been making researches on the motifs women use in several regions in Morocco and also in Mauritania. And sometimes there are differences. So let's talk about architecture, because the main, Hassan told you the difference between a Kasbah, which is a fortified house or palace or castle, which is small, but it could be as big as this one. This is close to what's said. It could be also smaller, just a 4-tower with a courtyard, if the family is not very important. Sometimes they can have courtyard like this one in Tinzoli. Also, if people have an idea that the rammed earth construction is a very heavy construction with the very small windows, look, you can do a lot of things with rammed earth if you know how to use that. No? Then you can have also, which is also very interesting to see the evolution of these places. You have Aulad Ottoman in the Dra Valley, which were two, first one Kasbah, then a second one, but then they started to have new houses around. But again, it's related because the Caïd from this place, he was very smart, and he needed people to work there. So when the slaves ran away from other places, he told them, okay, you are going to be free, but I propose you to stay here with me and to be a part of this community. And because his tribe was not very important, so it was a way to be stronger. And it is a very nice place, and there is a hotel, Abdelmajid, he's running. He's a little bit like Hassan. His grandfather was the last big Caïd. And you can see now how they started to extend the village. So then we have the Doxar. If you speak Spanish, or you know a little bit of Spanish, maybe you have heard about Alcázar and Alcazaba. These are the Spanish word, the transcription of the Arabic word Al-Kasbah, Al-Qasar. So, Aqsar is a fortified city, and it can be very big, smaller, and it can, like in this place, in this case, it can hold even several Kasbah. And the form, the shape can be different according to the place he has, if the topography, the relation with the oases. But you can have an idea of what are these kind of villages, because there are several points in common. At least they have one gate, but maybe they have 2, 3, 4, it depends if it's very big. Then if you come inside the main gate, like here, you arrive to a common place where people used to get together. When we say together, again, the difference between tribes is not the same thing how an Arabic tribe is organized than a Berber. The Berber is like a democratic tribe, and there is the Jama, who is an assembly, and they decide together what to do with things related to the tribe. So you have a common space, and around this common space you used to have the mosque, sometimes a small kasbah, sometimes also some shops and workshops. And then you have a main street with perpendicular one that have access to the houses. But you can see here is just one axe and then perpendicular. If it is bigger, it can be more complicated. But it is not really very, very... people used to say, Islamic urban planning is chaotic. It's not chaotic at all. But when you see why this is so clean and another one not so clean, you have to think that maybe it's because this part is higher and there is a hill, And so you have to adapt to the topography. And so the way to arrive with the animals is not straight. You have to surround the hill to go the top. So the gate. This is the gate we just entered this morning. And it is not the only one. The gate could be also smaller, bigger, with also some motifs. Like this one also. Then you have the mosque. Ben, I don't know if you know a little bit about the mosque, because even in Morocco people think that the main element of the mosque is the minaret. Okay. If we consider that in the Drava Valley there are 300 qasur and Kasbah, there are much more qasur than Kasbah, and sometimes they have 2, even 3 mosques. We could say that maybe at that moment there were 400 mosques in the whole valley. Well, only 5 had a minaret. Only 5. Today it remains 3. The Masla, Amsru, Nasrat. And now it's unthinkable to do a mosque without a minaret. But it was not true. And maybe it's related to another thing I'm going to talk later. Okay, this is the one of Amsru, which is amazing, near Zagora. This is I think they should visit that. I don't know if later or the new one. The new mosque which is close to here, which is also a madrasa which means a kind of university, without minaret. And then you can see inside those mosques is incredible, because also the materiality of the rammed earth, everything is not perfect. And sometimes in Shengeti, because you are in the middle of the desert, there is no carpet, it's just the sand. And you can pray on the sand. Each mosque also it has a water well. Sometimes it's the only one in the Luxor. And that becomes also a public space. And could be as simple as this one, or this is near Tamnougalt. It's amazing. We don't know when we did that, but it wasn't in the 18th century. Maybe the 15th, 16th, but nobody knows, because there is no archaeological work on that. But also with the light, it's a place where you can stay for days, just for meditation. So then we have the main axis that sometimes you see this is Amsru. And then those streets started to be covered, creating also amazing spaces. But also they are covered. Why they are covered? Because sometimes if you go to the Medina, you think that everything has been built at a glance. And all these places have been built for centuries. So at the beginning, there was just one floor. Then when the family got bigger and they don't have enough space, they have to build another floor. And then when they did another extension, they had an agreement. Usually they have an agreement with the neighborhood in front of the street. Okay, half of the street you are going to use that, and I'm going to use the other one. So it was also a way to occupy the public space, but also a way to protect these spaces from the hot weather. But again, look, it could be an artist who did that. No, he was just someone that he was told to cover that, and you cannot do with rammed earth what you can do with concrete or with bricks, which means each material has also his formality or his image. Well, then once you are inside, it depends if the house is from a rich family or not. This is near here. Could be a courtyard like that. The one you have visited, even if it is a Kasbah, and it could get smaller and smaller. Okay. If someone is interested, I made a kind of research in Amsterdam, where you can visit. This is the Docksar, but in fact, when we started, when I was teaching at the Architecture School of Tetuan, we realized that it was the first area, then there was a second extension, a third one, a fourth one, a fifth one, and then the neighborhood. So I decided to visit. This is half of Docksar is still habitated, and I decided to get inside to analyze and to make some sketches of the houses, and overall to compare how people lived and still live in these houses and how people live in new concrete houses. No, it was very, very interesting. So how people built, and now you should maybe look carefully to the deck in the Kasbah, but again also this is associated to agriculture, because if you have pantries, you can do one thing, and you can have the width of the room very, very limited. Then you use also the ricks to, then you put some earth. But if you have tamarix, which is the main tree at the end of the Dra Valley, you build in another way. And sometimes also, even they are so smart that when the trunk is not straight and there is a deformation, they use that as a kind of arch where you are going to put then you can treat also. You have more money. You can make, instead of brick, you use also palm trees. But if you have poplar trees like you mentioned this morning, the 1000 Kasbah road, this is not here, this is in the way of the Rashidia, the Rose Valley, Glaminguna, where there are, most of them are Kasbah. And what is great there is that they have poplar trees, and I measured once 7.5 meters wide of a room, because they could use this kind of trunk. But again, for me, it's very interesting to, okay, you have palm trees, you use palm trees. You have another tree that you can do it in another way, but you do it in another way. But you don't try to do always the same thing. It doesn't matter what kind of tree are you using. And it could be the same thing. If you have stones, you build in stone, not in rammed earth. So this is Tamnougalt. Okay, we are now here. The Kasbah is there, and the main gate is here. Again, because we don't have a lot of information. But it is true that it is said that the Islamic culture is based on orality. And when you talk about orality, sometimes it's not very, very accurate information. What we have learned in Ceuta, in the north, with a lot of Islamic heritage, is that you can have an idea of what the people of that period said about that place, but then it is with archaeological work that you can see what really is there. Why? Because sometimes the people that are considered as the sources, sometimes they are associated to the power. They are the chronicle of the Almohad dynasty, like Baidak, or you have people like historians like or geographers like Ibn Battuta from Tangier, or from Al-Ansari from Huelva, and sometimes they write, but sometimes they even went there. They just talk because some traveler told him about that place. No, well, everything. I'm talking about that because in the Dra Valley we don't have a lot of information about where these places have been built, at least at the beginning. But what we can say now is this: at the beginning there was just this part of the Ksar, and then there was another extension over there. And the madrasa I was talking is there, The synagogue you saw today is there, but here there is another mosque and there is another madrasa. And thanks to researchers from the Prague University that came here 3 years ago, that working on Jewish heritage, and they had information that someone told them that the old synagogue was on the first floor, and that one was is on the first floor. No? So, and then I tried to draw all this the street that cover, but you see that it is not so complex to understand how it works as public spaces. No? Well, then the other main architectural element is the zawiya. Zawiya is associated to religion and to brotherhood. And the brotherhood in the desert are very, very important. All the main dynasty, the Almoravid, the Almohad, before the Idrisi, the Merinid, the Saadian, you wanted to run Morocco, you need military power, but also religion power. So you have to be associated to one of the Zawiya. But the Zawiya, especially in the desert, they are more, especially in the desert, they are more related to Sufism. And we are talking about Sufism in the desert. It's more about philosophy, not about religion. And that's something that I have experienced in the desert. This is the Zawiya Sidi Salah. In the Zawiya Sidi Salah, which is one of the most important in the Drava Valley, and the one who is in charge of the mosque here, and the Marabout they have also here. No? It could be not just a religious center. This one in Tamnougalt, it is said that it was the place, not there, near there, it is not very clear, but the origin of the Saadi dynasty in the 16th century, that was one of the most important in Marrakech, doing all this complex I told you about in the Medina with the mosque and Tamnougalt. And they have a library. The building is not very interesting, but they had, because sometimes there were a competition between Zawiya and between dynasty. At the moment there was the Merinid in Fez trying to run the whole country, but then in the south there were the Saadian, so they were in a kind of competition to see who was more powerful through architecture, through mosques, through madrasat, through libraries. So the culture at that moment was very important as a power issue. You can see then the marabouts, where it is supposed that the saint or the guy who initiated that zawiya is buried, and can be associated to the zawiya, to the Aksar, and also can be outside of the city, and the architectural style can change a lot. But it could be as simple as this, that this is zawiya Naji in the middle of nowhere in Mohammed al-Kislan with someone buried inside. As I told you about the Jews that they arrived in the 5th century before Jesus Christ, and there is still synagogue that have been rehabilitated and people come here. I told you here there are 2, but many other places. This is near Gelmim, this is in Amthru. The heritage, the Jewish heritage, you can see that through jewelry, and there are still people working using the same techniques. And the last element I wanted to talk about is the granary. The granary also he mentioned today could be inside the Kasbah, but could be a building, a fortified building, because people keep the cereals inside. In fact, also again related to agriculture. In some oases, there are huge extensions outside the Bank Road that you think it's abandoned. In fact, they are not abandoned. They are used maybe once per 5 years when there are floods, because in that area arrive the water. Once per 5 years. So it is so huge that they can plant and they can get cereals to do farine. How would you say the farine in English?
Flour.
Eh?
Flour.
the flower, to make bread. So they can assure, thanks to those extensions and planting once for every 5 years, they can assure the bread for the family for 5 years. But they have to keep all these cereals in a protected way from humidity, from animals, and from other tribes. So this is a granary coming from the Highlands Mountains. I tried to visit this granary 3 times, and the third it was in December, and we found the women with the key, and so we could come inside. Another completely different kind of structure, but the most impressive thing that it is still used as a granary. Still. Then you can find another granary near Gelmim, Amtudi. We could say this is a small skyscrapers because you cannot see from here, but I can tell you there are 9 levels. 9 levels on the top of a hill. But this is a small one, but sometimes it's so big that it is not just for the cereals, also for the people when they are attacked, they go up there and they can stay for months because they have water and they have the cereals, and the access is very, very complicated. But then people live in the Qasar, in the Kasbah, also in the Zawiya. If people live in the Zawiya, it's because they are from a tribe called the Shorfa. And the Shorfa, sometimes they don't have towers, gates. It depends on the Shorfa here, Idrisid and Alawit. And one of them, they are used when there is a problem between tribes. They are doing the mediation between the tribes to find a solution. So they are very, very respected people. So they don't have to live in a fortification. So there are places that when talking about palm oases associated to nomad tribes, when they decided to settle down, they started to do small houses inside the palm grove. Here, in theory, it is forbidden to build inside the palm grove. And this is in Tirmat, in Gelmim. This is the house we are using with the artist. And also it's very interesting because people use that the way nomads live in the desert and occupy the space in the desert. That's something more complex I'm not going to explain. But this is also the result of a nomad family who decided to settle down, which is associated to one tree because the first process was this one. Nomads, sometimes they stay 3 months, 4 months, it depends, and we are just talking about single family, maybe 2 families. Before the independence, it could be 300, 400 families living together and moving together, not every 3 months, but maybe 6 months. It depends on water and rain, it depends on many things. But what it is interesting that maybe sometimes they build this wall because they are going to be protected them just for the animal, but also they put a tent inside. And then you can see the process I showed before, but if not, maybe you are going to see tomorrow this kind of tent, which is the traditional tent, which is, again, as I told you at the beginning, how to build or to make a shelter with what you have around you. And the nomads, they don't have a lot of things, but they have animals. They have camels and they have goats. And they can use the hair of camels and goats to build this kind of tent. And also it's so smart because they do a band of 60 centimeters wide, but you get inside, which is not in this picture, I think, you see that the tent can breathe because it is not, there are space between the fiber, the natural fiber. But when there is some rain, the fiber got more volume, and so the fiber get close one to each other, so that they become waterproof. I didn't believe that till one day, raining, a friend of mine told me, "Oh, now you are going to get inside. You are going to tell me if I was talking about bullshit or not." And it was amazing, amazing, amazing. And they are just using the hair of the animals that they use to transport, to eat, to trade. Then I was talking about this 60 centimeters wide. It depends on the importance of the family or the event, if it is the chief of the tribe, that they could be bigger and bigger and bigger. The only problem is that this kind of, the tent is quite heavy, So it's very interesting when you don't move a lot, and also when you need to be protected from the cold weather or from rain. And then, it's very, very simple, but then you can add some decorations. Or today, most of the nomads use this kind of tent. As you can see there, they are reused. This is recycled from the fabrics that these women I told you about from the Saharan tribes, the Melfha used to do. And they have 2 layers, and sometimes there are women in Gelmin doing this kind of tent. And sometimes they propose to add a plastic layer in between so they can get a little bit more waterproof. But if not, they put a plastic when there is going to be rain. But it is not very heavy, and it could be transported without problem. But the nomads are not poor people. So I remember the first time I slept with a nomad family 10 years ago. They have the small solar panel for the radio, for the telephone, for some lights, and they have also the television inside. Right. I'm almost finished. What happens when people move? Just to visit another family, so they are just going to stay one night in one place. They don't need to make a camp. So I can tell you that when you walk during the day and you stop when it's very, very hot, you need a shadow provided by a tree. If not, you are not going to have rest. And I had that experience once. So, and this is a typical tree in the desert in the south of Morocco, which is an acacia. Acacia, the camels love the sleep of the acacia, but people use the wood of the acacia to make the doors, because it's very, very good wood. But then also the nomads use I don't know how the liquid of the tree. Then when it comes outside, it becomes a little bit. They use that as a sugar, so they put that on the tea.
It's like a syrup?
No, because once this is outside of the trunk, it becomes. It is not liquid. Well. And what is also very interesting, I have thousands of pictures, but there is the shadow, and when you stay for 3 hours, the shadow change. And you have a carpet, and you change with the carpet, because as you tasted today, that just one step is too hot than the other. So you were looking not for the tree, but for the shade. And so thinking about that, I told myself how important can be a tree, that a tree can be an oasis, but an oasis cannot be just one tree. And sometimes the tree becomes a reference point for nomads. But that's during the day, for lunch and for take a rest. But during the night, you don't need the shadow. This was the last kafila I did with Nefa 300 kilometers in the middle of the desert in Mauritania, 2 weeks walking alone with 2 camels, not riding the camel. This is our camp. A carpet, which it is used to put everything on the camel so it is not hurt. But this is also our living room, our bathroom, and that's it. We put everything to be protected from the wind, because now we have this some kind of vegetation, but sometimes we have nothing. So imagine, you can have a house just with a carpet, which is sometimes the shadow will limit your space, but sometimes it's just a carpet. So it's a simplicity that you cannot imagine till you live that experience. So the first time they contacted me, you were going to work more about Marrakech and the relation of the traditional architecture in Marrakech. Overall, because Marrakech, as I told you, was founded in 1017, which means in the 11th century by Almoravid dynasty, which was a confederation of Zenaga, Jasuli, Gudala, Lamtuna tribes, which were nomad tribes moving between the Atlas Mountain and the river Senegal. And when they arrived to Marrakech, they wanted to use a city called Ahmad, 30 kilometers south of Marrakech, but it was so close to the mountain that it couldn't host everybody. So the first thing they did was to look for a place. He contacted the tribes, and they proposed a place where there were nothing at all, just, I don't know in English, as a Haifa, and no animals. There was the Tensif river, that sometimes they had water, and they decided to create a place to live. But maybe now you have more information to think that Marrakech, this is a drawing I made based in a plan from 1898, which means 15 years before the protectorate, where at the moment where the French started to make the extension of the city. But before that was the city, not just the rampart of the Medina. This is the Agdal garden, the Menara garden. You have to consider as a whole, not just about what is built, because everything you can see there was created, and the plot that you can see there, and it was everything used to build this city and provide food for the people living in that city, which means Marrakech could not be possible just with that and not creating all this agricultural plot, which means also all the hydraulic system that they built to bring water. And they do that just with what they learned from the desert. And nowadays Marrakech is considered one of the most important cities in Morocco. And it was, in fact, a city with people, because when it was the capital of the kingdom, it was, and it is still a cosmopolitan city. When people talk about, my tribe came from Yemen, and they realize that, and you can see that also on the skin, and the music they play, and this is something about amazing. It is not about Morocco, it's about a continent. So, questions?